May, June 2024, Paper 1, Variant 1. What is the length of the feather? How can I find the length of the feather? It started at 10 millimeters and it ended at 29 millimeters, so the difference is 19. 29 minus 10 is 19 millimeters, not 19 centimeters. Question 2. The diagram shows two objects X and Y suspended from identical springs. The extension of each spring is different. Which row compares the mass and the weight of the two objects? It's quite obvious that Y has a larger mass and has a larger weight. Therefore, the mass of X is less than the mass of Y, and the weight of X is also less than the weight of Y. Question 3. Plastic bottle contains 750 centimeters cubed of oil. The mass is shown. What is the density? So density equals mass over volume. Can I find the mass of the oil? Can I find the mass of the oil? Yes, 650 minus 50. So it's only 600. 600 divided by the volume, which is 750. 600 divided by 750 is 0.8 grams per centimeters cubed. The extension load graph for the spring is shown. The unstretched length of the spring is 15 centimeters. When an object of unknown weight is suspended, the length becomes 16.4. What is the weight of the object? So first of all, we need to find the extension. To find the extension, 16.4 minus 15 would be 1.4. From the y-axis, which is the extension axis, we need to go to 1.4, which is right about here, and then draw a horizontal line. Okay, if you draw a horizontal line, it would reach this point exactly, and then draw another vertical line. So this is 3.5 newtons. Question 5, a student determines the position of the center of gravity of a piece of card. The diagram shows the equipment that is available. Which piece of equipment is not needed if we want to find the center of gravity? The center of gravity. We do not need a stopwatch. Definitely, we do not need a stopwatch, yes. A cyclist stops his bicycle using the brakes. Which row about energy stores is correct? Which kind of energy decreases as he brakes? Which kind of energy decreases? Yes, the kinetic energy decreases. What increases? Is it the chemical energy? No, the thermal energy of the brakes. Yes, the thermal energy of the brakes due to the friction, the heat increases. A man applies a force of 40 newtons to push a box along the floor. How much power is required? So we know that power equals energy over time or work done over time. Basically, what is the work done? It's force times distance over time. So basically, all you need to do is say 40 times the distance moved is 4 divided by 3, which is 53.333 watts. Four identical submarines P, Q, R, and S are lowered from one depth to another at a constant density. Which row is correct for the difference in pressure from initial to final depth of each submarine? So if we take a look at P, the initial depth was 10, the final was 30, so the difference is 20. Same goes for Q. Why? Because it was 50 and then it goes to 70. So the pressure difference or the height difference, the depth difference is 20 meters. As for R, it's 40 meters, and S, it's also 40 meters. So the difference is 40 meters for R and S, while P and Q is only 20 meters. So we're talking about the pressure difference, not the final pressure. The pressure difference of P and Q would be the same, while the pressure difference of R and S would also be the same. P and Q would be less, and R and S would be much more. Some terms describing changes of state are listed. Which two terms identify the same change of state? Change of state. Boiling, solidification, condensation, evaporation. Yes, boiling and evaporation. Why? Because you're changing from liquid to gas. Question 10. Random motion of the particles, Brownian motion. Why do the smoke particles move randomly? They move randomly due to the air particles hitting them. They are hit by the air molecules. How is a temperature in degrees Celsius converted into Kelvin? From Celsius into Kelvin? How can we convert it? Yes, so basically, yes, add 273 to the temperature in, yes, exactly. To find Kelvin, okay, to find Kelvin, we say temperature, degrees Celsius plus 273. Question 12. The diagram shows a frictionless piston inside the cylinder. The air inside the cylinder is heated. You start to heat up the air inside the cylinder. The piston moves in the direction shown. So the piston moves to the right. Which statement about the air inside the cylinder is correct? As you increase the temperature, what happens to the volume? The volume increases. So PVT, pressure, volume, and temperature, if you increase the temperature, then the volume increases, but this has to happen while you have a constant pressure. You have to have a constant pressure. The temperature and the volume increase. Yes, the temperature and the volume increase. The pressure has to be constant, and this is what we call thermal expansion. You cannot say that the temperature and pressure and volume all increase. This would be wrong. This would be wrong. B is definitely wrong. Why? Because this is not a constant volume. Because the piston is moving to the right, so the volume is increasing. The volume is increasing, and definitely the temperature is not constant. Question 13. What increases when the temperature of a copper block increases? The internal energy of the block. Yes, the internal energy increases. A textbook gives the description of thermal process. More energetic molecules escape from the surface. So this is evaporation. We know that when molecules escape from the surface, this is called evaporation. In which situation is radiation the main method? The main method from which energy is transferred. Yes, radiation would be the main method while transferring energy from the sun to the earth. Okay. The diagram represents a wave. Which row gives the wavelength and the amplitude? The wavelength, would it be x? Can it be x? No, it cannot be x. Why? Because in x you've got four full waves. You've got one, this is one full wave, and then another full wave, okay, and another and another. So you have four full waves. To find the wavelength, it would be x over 4. So I gave off the answer. Yes, it's x over 4. What about the amplitude? Yes, the amplitude is half the distance of y. This is the amplitude, only from the crest to the center or from the trough to the center. Yes, this would be the wavelength and the amplitude. Which row describes a seismic P wave? So we have two types of seismic waves, P waves and S waves. To memorize the difference, it would be easier to memorize the S wave, which is a transverse wave, okay? S wave, transverse. S waves, transverse. So S and S. Therefore, P would be longitudinal. P would be longitudinal, meaning that it moves parallel to the direction of propagation. Just to memorize them, they are earthquakes, earthquake waves. You've got S waves and P waves. The S wave is a transverse, S and S, while P is longitudinal. Yes. Which diagram shows waves diffracting? Diffraction would be D. Diffraction would be D. Yes. The diagram shows a ray of light in glass incident. What happens if the angle of incidence is made larger than the critical angle? Larger. So you need total internal reflection. Total internal reflection. The angle of refraction becomes equal to 90? No, this is critical angle. There is a refracted ray inside the glass, and no, there is no refraction. Refracted ray only. There is only a reflected ray inside the glass. Total internal reflection. Red light of frequency 430 hertz and has a wavelength of 700 meters. Okay, times 10 to the negative 9 meters. What is possible for blue light? If we write them down, Roy Gibev. We know that the red has the longest wavelength and the shortest or the least frequency. As you go downwards, the wavelength decreases while the frequency increases. So you need to increase the frequency and decrease the wavelength. Increasing the frequency, 670, decreasing the wavelength would be 450. Okay, Infrared is a useful type of electromagnetic radiation. However, excessive exposure of infrared can cause harmful effects. Which show gives a use and harmful effect of the infrared radiation? Hmm. The use could be intruder alarms, yes, or could be thermal imaging, while the harmful effects could be skin burns. Could it be internal heating of body cells? No. Why? Because this is one harmful effect of the microwaves. The microwaves. This is a harmful effect of the microwaves, not the infrared radiation. Table shows data for the hearing ranges of different animals. Which animal has the most similar hearing range to a human? We know that the human has a hearing range from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. The closest one would be an elephant. Yes, an elephant would be the closest one. Which description of ultrasound is correct? Are they transverse? No. Longitudinal waves with a frequency greater than 20,000 hertz. Yes. Which diagram shows the pattern and the direction of the magnetic field lines around the bar magnet from the North Pole to the South Pole? So D and C are wrong. Is it A or B? Yes, it is A because B cannot go from the south to the north. So this part is wrong. It is A. Which material is a good electrical conductor? Definitely copper. What is an electric current and how is an ammeter positioned in a circuit to measure the current in a resistor? Electric current is the flow of hmm, charge. Yes. Positioning of the ammeter, it has to be in series. Yes. Which unit is used for the potential difference? Potential difference, definitely the volts. The circuit in the diagram consists or contains four switches, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which three switches must be closed for the heater to work? Which of these is the heater? This is the heater, so you need S1, S2, and S4. S1, S2, and S4. S3 is for the thermistor. The metal case of an electrical appliance is fitted with an earth connection. What is the purpose of this? The earth connection. The purpose of the earth connection is to prevent from an electric shock. To prevent from an electric shock. A student moves a magnet into a coil. The voltmeter measures the magnitude of the electromotive force. Which quantity does not affect the magnitude? Does not affect the magnitude. So the number of turns, yes, it would affect it. The polarity, does the polarity affect the magnet? No, does not affect the polarity. It does not affect the magnitude. It only affects what? Yes, it affects the direction of the current in the wire. Student makes a small DC motor. The teacher supplies the following equipment. Which equipment must be used to generate or to create a motor? An ammeter, battery. Okay, so we need a battery, we need a coil of wire, and we need a magnet. Battery and a magnet. Yes, we need all these three. We do not really need an ammeter or a voltmeter. Okay. Hmm. Question 32. Which row is correct? The charge on the nucleus is positive. The charge on the orbiting particles, which are the electrons, is negative. What is the charge on a proton and what is the charge on a neutron? The proton positive 1 and the neutron is 0. This is a piece of cake. An isotope of radon is radioactive. It decays by emitting an alpha particle. What happens to the nucleus of a radon atom during the emission of the alpha particle? When when radon emits alpha, basically, radon is just an element. Whatever element. If it emits an alpha particle, what is an alpha particle? We know that it is a helium nucleus. How can I write down an alpha particle? I would write it down as alpha 4 and 2, meaning that it has what? It has two protons. So if I take two protons from radon, or if I take two protons from whatever element from the periodic table, would this element remain the same element? Would it be the same, or would it change? Would it change? Yes, it definitely would change. It would not be the same element. So if I take out two protons, you actually change the element, the whole element. It becomes a different element. You cannot say it becomes a different isotope of radon. This is wrong. Hmm. Taking out two protons, will it leave it with, will you have an element with a higher proton number or with a lower proton number? Yes, definitely with a lower proton number. So for example, if it had 10 protons, you take out an alpha, so you have only 8 protons remaining. Therefore, it's a totally different element. The nuclide notation of isotope strontium is SR1938. Which statement is correct? Does it have 38 neutrons? No, it has 38 protons. Does it have 52 neutrons? Yes, because 90 minus 38 is 52. Okay, question 36. A box is used for storing radioactive sources. What is the best material to use for the lining of the box to prevent radiation? The best material would be lead, because if you have gamma radiation, lead would prevent the gamma from escaping. The Earth is a planet that orbits the Sun once in approximately 365 days. What does this enable us to explain? The rotation around the Sun explains what? Explains the seasons. Yes, thank you. The seasons. The radius of orbit of Venus is 110. Radius of orbit of Earth is 150. The speed of light is 0.3. How long does the light take to travel from Venus to Earth when these planets are closest to each other? So, if the distance from Venus to the Sun is 110 and from Earth to the Sun is 150, can I find the distance from Earth to Venus? Yes, by subtracting. Subtraction, all you need to do is subtract. 151 is 110. This would be 40 times 10 to the power of 6 kilometers. So this is the distance from Earth to Venus. Then the speed, you have the speed. Can I find the time? Yes, speed equals distance over time. Speed equals distance over time. Therefore, time equals what? Distance over speed. You have the distance, 40 times 10 to the power of 6, and then you have the speed, 0.3 times 10 to the power of 6. You do not need to convert anything. So 40 times 10 to the power of 6 divided by 0.3 times 10 to the power of 6. This would give you a time of around 133 seconds, which is A. What are the three main types of radiation emitted by the sun? Infrared radio, no, infrared visible light, and ultraviolet radiation. Yes. Question 40. What is a light year? Light year is the distance traveled in space by light in 1 year. Distance traveled in space by light in 1 year.